Okay, the recording has started, and this is the February 5th, 2019 Crossplane community meeting. So we'll go ahead and get started by taking a look at the latest roadmap and then the 0.2 milestone and project that we are currently in the midst of. So I think since the last meeting, the roadmap hasn't undergone any major changes. It is in master now, though. So as a community, we agreed upon the set of features that we want to see in the upcoming 0.2 and 0.3 milestones. So no surprises there. So let's go ahead and look at the project boards and milestone itself. Let me make that a little smaller. So the big thing to note here is that we have found owners for a few of the features here in the 0.2 milestone that we're starting work on now. And the big ones would be the workload scheduler. Ilya finished it was some help with Ravi too, finished the design for that, and that has been merged to master, and now he's been working on the initial implementation for the basic scheduler. Nick has picked up the Redis support to add support for cloud provider managed services of Redis caching, and there's a pull request open to bring that into master as well that we'll talk about. And then but we still have a fair amount of unclaimed issues. Some of these, there's a lot of them that are fairly friendly in terms of being able to pick up first initial issues. The ones that are that are really good for people to pick up as a first issue are listed with the good first issue label. But there are some other ones that would maybe be good for a second issue too. I don't know, we don't have a specific label for those, but there's a lot of interesting things that are bite-sized chunks that can be picked up here. So quick look at the project board. We have a fair amount of issues that are already in the done column, and we have the issues that I mentioned that are currently in progress now about the resource scheduler, workload scheduler, the Redis supports. And then also I'm doing a cleanup refactoring to reuse the general resource controller for other types as well. I initially used it for Postgres and MySQL, but it also will work perfectly for buckets and for clusters as well. So I'm in the midst of implementing that and finding the time to do that. And then the to-do column, we have a fair chunk of issues that are remaining and are not quite not picked up by anyone yet, that are missing assignees. And that's the same issues that are on the 0.2 milestone that we were just looking at. So this board is, I believe, an up-to-date, accurate reflection of the issues in the 0.2 milestone. And anybody that wants from the community that wants to pick up any of these issues, they're all fair game if they don't have an assignee on them, and we're more than happy to help get anyone that wants to contribute on these issues ramped up and productive on all of them. All right, any questions for the milestones, the 0.2 milestones, or looking ahead to the 0.3 milestone that anybody wants to bring up now? All right, I will go ahead and move on in the agenda document. All right, so let's move on to the community topics section of the agenda. So if anybody wants to add anything to this agenda document, you're more than welcome to, and I'll go ahead and accept it and include it in the document now. But a couple of issues or community topics to talk about. So the big feature focus on 0.3 milestone is the ability for Crossplane to run real world applications. And the big one that we're partnering on and will have the ability to demonstrate a fairly complicated application running in a portable way, a portable workload across multiple cloud providers is GitLab that we've been talking about and excited about. So I just wanted to give a small update on that. That the GitLab, some of the folks, engineers from the GitLab side, like DJ and Jason, have been working on testing out Crossplane and kind of getting ramped up on it and figuring out the current status of the feature set and what might be missing. What are some of the gaps in terms of what GitLab will need for support to be able to successfully deploy the GitLab application and all of its components in many different environments. And so we've been engaging with them. Jason's been working on that in terms of getting buckets and databases and things installed. So we will continue working with the GitLab team. It's everything that's being done there is being tracked either in GitLab here on issue 991 in the charts repo for GitLab. And so follow along with the discussion there for sort of big updates that are going along that process. And then there's also still the GitLab channel in our Crossplane Slack workspace. So those are the two main places to follow along with if you're interested in the GitLab progress for supporting GitLab. And there's still plenty of space for anybody who wants to contribute on that, since it is a fairly complicated application to support that has a fair amount of touch points. For instance, Nick picking up the support for Redis managed services, that is that'll be useful for the community as a whole, but it's also in direct service to supporting GitLab since it uses Redis for its caching. Right, so that's an update on GitLab there. I wanted to also just briefly talk about documentation for adding support for new resources. We have a couple of more recent contributors that have been adding support for things like Redis that Nick was doing, and then Daniel had been working on adding modeling and adding a controller for resource groups in Azure. And so, as people are getting ramped up on the general process for adding support for new resource types in Crossplane, we're seeing a definite need to get that process better documented, and probably some areas where we can streamline it too, where we can potentially add automation to make some of that process more streamlined and be able to scale the addition of new resources more effectively to the project. So let's see here. So we, a couple of notes here for, the general process right now. And then both Nick and Daniel have expressed interest in getting that documented. And those are two very good candidates for that, since they are actively in the midst of adding support for new resources and, getting ramped up and have that all fresh in their mind right now. So any notes that you all take during that process, and then if you can collaborate on getting it documented or even adding suggestions for where we can automate the process more and make it easier for people, would be very much appreciated. All right, another issue that I was interested in that I don't have insight into, I think Ilya does, is about being able to iterate more quickly as a developer on the project. What I've still been doing to this day is running Crossplane in Minikube with the Helm chart from that I build locally, and that works fairly well. It's not a very costly iteration cycle, but you don't have the ability to easily, at least, attach a debugger and run it in a debugger. And you have to build like the container image and the Helm chart every time that you make an update. And so the way of being able to run as just a local process on your dev machine that you can easily attach a debugger to and quickly tear down and bring back up again is still pretty desirable. So Ilya had originally expressed that's how he's working things now. And so getting some information from him, even just raw notes, I'd be happy to kind of pull those together and put a little bit more structured documentation around that to our dev docs. And then Daniel has expressed some interest in helping as well. Daniel, I know you're on the call right now. Are you using Minikube right now to test, or what is your general flow right now?
Yes, I've been using Minikube, and I mean, it works fine, but I don't know. I feel like that it took me a little while to get up and running and making sure everything was, configured as specified in the installation documents. So I definitely think a more standardized way to do that would be good. Obviously, it's not as big of an issue right now because we're at like 11 contributors or something like that. But hopefully, as it ramps up to more people, especially when people start to have questions and we have to troubleshoot on stuff, I think it'd be a lot easier if we had a more consistent local workflow.
Yeah, definitely. Those are good points, Daniel. Cool. Yeah. So we have this issue, and it's in the it's in the 0.2 milestone in the to-do column. So I expect that we'll be able to collect some information around this from the general community and from Ilya especially as well, since he's actively doing this, and we'll get that experience improved.
Awesome.
Okay. So the next section in the agenda document is just about pull requests. Now, normally this section is about pull requests that have been hanging around for a while, or ones that need specific attention. But I just wanted to call these ones out here today. So this one for the workload scheduler has just been opened yesterday. So it's not been sitting around and waiting for someone's attention. It just was opened yesterday. But this is kind of one of the first big steps in the implementation of the workload scheduler for deploying and making sure that workloads and all their resources are running and optimized across the various environments that we want to support. So taking a look at this pull request is definitely in the best interest of anyone from the community that is interested in the direction and the implementation specifics for the workload scheduler. So pull request 310 is one that is just open now and is open for feedback for a discussion from folks in the community if you're interested in that. And let's see if Nick is on the call. I don't think he is. But I also wanted to bring folks' attention to the Redis API. So Nick has started support, as I mentioned, for Redis clusters. And so he's got the API defined for all of the Redis managed services across the cloud providers that we support right now for AWS, GCP, and Azure. And so that's all defined, and a few of us have taken a look at it already. But it would be good if anybody else is interested in that to go ahead and take a look at it as well if you're interested in the Redis API. And this also demonstrates sort of what the first steps are for adding support for a new resource, of defining what the API is and some of the handlers for provisioning and things like that. So it could also be potentially educational if you want to take a look at it. So this is pull request 307 for supporting Redis. And all these links are in the agenda document as well. So you can find all of them there. All right, so that's all that I had in terms of community topics and pull requests that I wanted to discuss. Was there any other topic that anybody wanted to bring up on the call today? I think everyone's muted. If anybody did want to mention anything, you'll have to unmute yourself. All righty. Jorge, I noticed that you're on the call, and I wanted to thank you for the the discussion that you had started with me about some of the various Azure resources and getting ramped up. So that was a fruitful discussion. I'm excited about your your interest in your collaboration here.
Yeah, no, thanks for the reply. I've been just looking into the information, and I've been looking more into the source code and everything. So any help on the Azure side, just let me know. I've been working with some of the latest resources, so yeah, I can help on that.
That's awesome, Jorge. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Cool, guys. All right, so I think that's all for the call today then, unless anybody has a last-minute topic. Otherwise, we can wrap it up early today. Alrighty, everybody up in Seattle, stay safe then with the weather up there.
I know it's icy out there. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
Bye.
You will.